The main character instructed the sword girl to close her eyes. We see the main character, with all his strength, holding the demonic blade in his hand and slamming it towards the ground, breaking the ground open as rocks fly. The image of the lecherous demon dodges that, somehow getting a bit farther. We see him trembling and thinking about what the main character just did. Even he, as a skilled master, could barely dodge it with his trembling body and unyielding posture. We see him devastated to his core as he sees something coming. He spits blood as we observe the main character once again attacking him. The man has seemingly lost both of his hands, which causes him to severely bleed as blood flows everywhere. The main character is once again targeting him. We see the eyes of the main character, intent on finishing this demon off, as the main character's gaze is Titan-like. We observe the look of the sword girl, who has never seen the main character in such a posture. She looks shocked and shaken to her core. We observe the lecherous demon somehow evading that attack as well. Of course, not without some precautions, as he jumps back. The main character lifts his sword, which has an orange and yellow tilt like it's burning up. It looks like hell itself. As he lifts it up and swings it once again, he says, "Where do you think you're going?" with a smile. It looks like the main character is a different kind of lunatic once he gets into action. We see him pacing his foot on the ground, making enough traction for him to swing the sword. As he swings, we observe that the sword has hit its target and blood splatters once more. The whole area is now covered with droplets of blood. The main character has slashed the lecherous demon over his abdomen. We observe the lecherous demon with his abdomen slashed and his hands already gone, bleeding profusely, still trying to somehow waver his situation out of there. But the main character doesn't want to give him a chance or spare him. As the main character turns his shift on the blade, gripping it tightly, he slashes once again towards the lecherous demon. This time, it is much worse than before. You can see what is happening in the frame as the man gets chopped, at least on one side of his body. This is a tremendously bloody battle. We see him screaming out in the painful sensations that he has been feeling. It looked like his wish of seeing someone get tortured is coming true, while he is the one being tortured, of course. But we look towards the main character, who is still not happy with the pain he has already caused the demon. Once again, we see him with his devilish eyes, swinging that hell of a blade. This time, we see him focusing a bit more, and in seconds, we see him finishing off what he started. The lecherous demon was yet defeated. Not just that, but he also cut half of the cave open with that one slash. Truly terrifying, if I must say. We see the expression of the main character and the change of color in his eyes, while one has become red and the other is still brown. As all of this was happening, we look towards the face of the sword girl, who is watching all this as blood splatters towards her as well. We see her reaction, totally surprised or speechless, to be exact. We look towards the lecherous demon, the once almighty one, not knowing what just happened to him. His head is severed from his body, and his last words were, "Who the hell are you?" to the main character. As the main character sees his soul going to hell and his body freed from the lecherous soul it was trapped in, we observe a pair of feet coming towards the cave. They see the amount of blood on the floor and speak about how this could have happened. They came here because of the strange sound coming from the cave. It looks like these people cannot fathom how their almighty boss has been defeated and cannot understand that they are standing in front of death itself. They still didn't believe that the main character, who was holding a sword and was covered with blood, was the same person who killed their boss. "Are you telling me this was all you're doing?" the man says. We see them a bit annoyed, seeing how such a young guy could do that, most probably rejecting the idea of the main character being fair in the fight. We see them swinging the sword towards the main character with the intention of killing him. But the next instant, the man gets slashed in half so fast that he can't even fathom what is happening. Seeing the amount of blood flowing towards them, his accomplices are a bit shocked. After a bit of grasping, the main character just decides to use his demonic sword and finish all of them with one fell swoop. As we see him swinging around, jumping, and finishing everyone in an instant. Of course, this was not all smooth, as everyone had multiple slashes before they died, so their deaths were more painful. As the main character lands his final slash, we hear the screams ringing out. The whole cave is now painted with blood. Blood was flowing like water in a river. But if there was someone who was more traumatized than the people facing the main character, it was her. I'm talking about the sword girl who is seeing all this damn fighting. Not fighting, but a massacre of a scene in front of her eyes. Truly traumatizing, as she sees everything from the sidelines and the main character, who is covered from tip to toe with blood. She could not fathom the situation as dead bodies and corpses lie at the main character's feet. It seems like the dance of a devil or hell on earth itself. She thinks to herself, if this is really the man I knew, the main character that I have laughed with and spent moments with. Of course, reminiscing about the time the main character came to eat at her house. We see her calling the main character with a soft voice, as she is a bit scared right now. The main character, who hears her, turns his head 180 degrees towards her. She was truly scared to her core about what the reaction from the main character would be. Traumatizing, ugly. We see the main character's face, and we realize why she was trembling. The main character looked like a demon himself after defeating a demon. We see the main character saying to her, I've already told you that you should have closed your eyes. While we see the main character returning to his original self, or more or less his friendly self, as both his eyes are now of the same color, and the smile on his face just looks correct. We observe the main character now once again sheathing his sword, which is still emitting such a gratuitous amount of energy, as he says, I cannot control myself. The moment I draw this blade. We see the main character telling her about how even he cannot yet control this sword, and is not able to fully make it his own yet. After seeing the things that the main character had done, she was just speechless. The main character broke the silence about this sword, telling her how this weapon is from his mother. Now that's a surprise. By the way, guys, we still haven't gotten any news about the main character's parents. While the main character shows her the blade, we see her reaction, thinking about how this blade is such a terrifying one. Well, isn't she a bit of a scaredy cat? Anyways, we see the main character now introducing his father's weapon and saying that it's a sword. But the main character makes it clear that he is going to conquer the world with only his mother's weapon, and that he will never wield a sword in his life. We see the determination in the main character's eyes. It looks like he has some problem with his father, as we have heard again in the chapter before. Anyways, we see the girl asking why the main character says that, why is he carrying his father's weapon when he is not even going to draw it? The main character just changes the topic, asking the girl if she is all right, if she is okay. We look towards the frame where the main character is kindly looking towards the sword girl, keeping in mind that this is the same guy who just obliterated a master 15 minutes ago and a few of his servants 5 minutes ago. We see the entirety of the cave as the girl says that she is all right to the main character. We see the corpses on the ground, and the lady says whatever version of the main character he is, he's still him. He's still him. Looks like she has already accepted the main character, and it's not going to change her mind with a few bodies. Well, as the night arises, we see some people thanking someone, saying, thank you so much. If it weren't for your generous intervention, we all would have been killed. We won't forget this favor, they all say. But the man in front just says, no, actually, well, we look at the young brat of the Southern Peak Alliance, who wavers about it as we see everyone gathering here to thank him. He himself could not understand the fact that how all of this happened and why he is in the limelight here. Well, what happened was when he opened his eyes in the cave, he found himself standing up with a blade in his hand and the corpses of all the enemies on the ground. He couldn't understand what was happening. It felt like he had fallen asleep for just a moment. And then when he woke up, it was all there. Of course, the main character makes up this story to tell everyone. We see the sword girl also completing it, saying how not just the lecherous demonic scourge but his henchmen were also dead when they woke up. This is what both the main character and the sword girl have been telling him and everyone. Strangely, it all makes sense to him, of course, because he is an idiot. We see him looking mysterious, saying, this can only mean that Grandpa has implemented an unparalleled martial art into my body. We see him making a fist, and looking towards the sky like a person who has finally achieved something. As we see him imagining the face of his grandpa, who is also the leader of the Southern Peak Alliance, thanking his grandpa for all that he has done, or what he thinks he has done, we see the confused faces of the people who are bowing in front of him. What a scene! We see him doting about how it's a relief to see everyone safe, and about how he had a feeling that he would have a trick up his sleeve, and all that. But looking in the background, the Phoenix girl was looking keenly towards something or someone. As we see her face a bit closer, she's thinking something as she looks towards that direction. She is looking towards the main character and the sword girl, who is sitting beside the lake in the bright moonlight, with the stars shimmering in the sky. The sword girl says that she had never expected he would be the one claiming responsibility for all that. Well, the main character replied to her that he had always expected that from him because pride and status mean everything to people like that. We see the sword girl thinking to herself if these things are really so important to people. We see someone saying, "Hey, look, our worship is arriving." As we see a daunting little ship arriving towards the coast, we get to know that, due to this incident, the main character, with his striking pose, believes there will be a gush of changes. We observe how the gradual Dragon and Phoenix tournament had eventually come to an end, an abrupt end, to be exact. In a mesmerizing castle, we see the head of the Northern Peak Alliance. And if you observe, a man is coming towards him, saying, exterminating those latches, demonic scourge, and rescuing these people. He did a great job. We know this man. We have seen him once before in Chapter 4. Looks like he still doesn't understand something. But the old man, with his face down, does realize something. He says to the man, that wasn't his grandson's deeds. The man says, "I beg your pardon?" He did not understand what the old man was saying, but we see him explaining about how his grandson's poison was strong enough to face the lecherous demonic scourge. Yet it looks like he knows his grandson's limits. We see the big guy asking, who could it be that defeated him? Then we see him remembering the main character and telling the big guy about how he has heard that boy participated in the tournament. Of course, the big man does remember the main character and asks, "Are you referring to him?" Well, of course, it's the main character, Geek Legion. We look towards the main character's image that they saw that day. He thinks to himself, could it be that this was the boy who took down the lecherous, demonic scourge all by himself? It's unthinkable, but I can't shake the feeling that he is connected to this incident somehow. Looks like the old man still has his senses. Shall I investigate him discreetly? The big man asks, but the guy says, there is no need to provoke him unnecessarily for now. Let's act unaware and keep watching. The man understood this and says, in any case, this is an opportunity to tarnish the reputation of the Northern Heaven Supreme family. The old man says that he has decided to let this incident pass, at least for now. The man was quite shocked by the old man's decision. The old man explains about how, of course, they could exploit this to their advantage. However, they still can't dig a hole deep enough to bury them. The mastermind behind this incident is certainly daring. Since there was such an incident in the Dragon and Phoenix tournament, there is no reason to think that the Heavenly Dragon Grand Tournament will be spared either. The man was shaken to his core after hearing that there is a chance that these people might mess things up in the Grand Tournament. By the way, those people who have forgotten about it, the Heavenly Dragon Grand Tournament is the biggest tournament in the Jianghu, where only the martial masters take place, just like this old man, and the main character was originally coming to Jianghu for this tournament. We see the image of the old man showing his lunatic side, saying, I don't know who is pulling the strings, but we will dance along. Of course, you must with someone's grandson, and that is what you're going to get. Looks like there will be a lot of chaos in the grand tournament up ahead. Well, before that, we observe beautiful terrain, large mountain peaks climbing towards the sky, and folks surrounding them. We observe the poster of the New Wind Manor, as someone says. You said you had something to go to New Wind Manor? What is this place? We see that it's the main character and the sword girl. Well, it looks like the main character is finally going to show her this place of his. The main character explains to her that this place is his home. She was quite shocked. So this is your home? Just when I thought I wouldn't be surprised by anything he does, he manages to outdo himself every time. she thinks to herself as the main character opens up the door for her, saying, "I built it with the meaning of the new gush of wind that will sweep through the Jianghu." We see her pupils dilate as she watches what's inside this gate. She is mesmerized by the beautiful palace and courtyard inside this place. Absolutely astonishing. Of course, a bit smaller than her own house, but still something. The main character asks her, "How is it? Do you like it?" She says, "It's stunning, but why is it so enormous?" We see the main character explaining to her that he is planning to establish a new sect here. She was absolutely stunned after hearing about the new sect. The main character, with his face towards the sun, says to her, "I am naming it the Azure Heaven Sect. Do you guys think that he should call the clan the Namgun Clan?" We see the girl love the name Azure Heaven and brightly smile towards the main character. "That is such a lovely name," she says as we see, in the dense forest of bamboo, the main character and she are walking towards somewhere on a path. She asks, "The back garden is beautiful too, but when did you start building all of this?" The main character explains how, just a few months ago, he started all of this. We see her stopping, and her face changes as fog comes. She wonders, what is happening? She asks the main character, "Wait, is this an array?" The main character says, "Yes, it's a simple sound blocking array." He says it so nonchalantly, like it's just something that everyone has. She asks the main character if this array is to block the sound. The main character, walking towards the door, opens up this big, massive door, out of which light erupts like the blazing sun. The main character says, "I have placed the array here because," well, we look towards the expression of the sword girl as she sees what's inside this huge place. The main character says to her, "The real Azure Heaven sect is still under construction deep inside the Wind Manor." As we see an even larger area and a whole sect inside that building on the other side of that door, we look towards the main character's eyes, unwavering with no fear and fully confident in what he is doing. As we see the top view of the Azure sect, the main character's home, which is so massive on the inside that it makes the other sects look like children's play blocks.